Brianna, Carter, and Layla Keller were just 12, 9, and 6 years old when their mother, Amanda Keller, walked out of their lives and vanished into a new one, leaving them trapped in a decaying house with no food, no electricity, and no clue if she'd ever return. For 3 long years, the children survived in silence, hiding their secret from a world that never thought to check. Amanda Keller's disappearance wasn't dramatic. It wasn't marked by a midnight escape or a police report. She left quietly on a grey Thursday morning, dressed in jeans, a sweatshirt, and carrying a duffel bag. She told her kids she was going to the store. It was the kind of lie children believe without question. She didn't look back as she walked to the bus stop at the end of Willow Creek Lane. The children, 12-year-old Brianna, 9-year-old Carter, and 6-year-old Layla, watched through the cracked blinds, expecting her to return by lunch. But lunch came and went. Then dinner. By nightfall, their stomachs were growling and the lights had begun to flicker. Still, Brianna tucked her siblings into bed and waited at the front door, certain their mother would return. The next day was much the same. No phone call. No messages. Amanda's purse was gone, as was her phone charger. Brianna called their mother's number multiple times, but it always went straight to voicemail. She didn't panic at first. Amanda had disappeared before, usually for a day or two. She'd always come back angry and distant, but she came back. So Brianna waited. And when the waiting turned into the third night of hunger and silence, she began to realize this time was different. There had never been a father in the picture. Amanda had spoken of him once, vaguely, and never again. No relatives visited. No close friends lived nearby. The family had moved to this neighborhood only a year earlier, and Amanda kept to herself. Neighbors noticed the kids but didn't know their names. A few times, a woman from across the street waved at Brianna as she brought groceries inside, but they never spoke. Now, the house was silent except for the occasional creak of the floorboards and the groan of old pipes. By the 5th day, Brianna opened Amanda's closet and found it half empty. Shoes were missing. Makeup, perfume bottles, and old handbags were gone. Only a few winter coats remained, untouched since last December. She checked the kitchen and found a stack of unopened bills. Most were final warnings: electricity, water, rent. That night, the lights went out for good, with no adults to turn to. Brianna took charge. She found a flashlight in a drawer and rationed what little food was left: canned beans, crackers, and dry cereal. She didn't cry. She had no time to cry. Carter looked to her for answers, and Layla clung to her like a shadow. Brianna pulled the curtains shut and told them not to answer the door. She used Amanda's old makeup pencil to write down everything they needed: water, food, toilet, paper. Then she circled the word help, but never dared to say it out loud. Outside, the neighborhood remained still. Lawns were mowed, cars pulled into driveways, and children played in sprinklers. Inside the Keller home, time began to stretch. Minutes became hours. Days blended together. And the 3 children waited for someone, anyone, to notice they were completely alone. The first few weeks after Amanda left were held together by routine and instinct. Brianna, now shouldering the weight of a missing parent, divided her days into tasks. In the mornings, she would check the kitchen, counting cans and boxes, calculating how long they would last. Carter was in charge of flushing the toilet with rainwater they collected in pots on the porch. Layla, barely 6, followed her older siblings around, too young to understand the seriousness but old enough to feel something was wrong. They whispered about their mother only at night, wondering where she had gone, asking if she was coming back. Brianna always said yes, but inside, she wasn't so sure anymore. By the 2nd month, the food had nearly run out. Electricity had long been shut off. The refrigerator was just a large, humming box with a smell Brianna couldn't fix. The water stopped too. At first, they used bottles Amanda had left under the sink, but when those were gone, Brianna had to improvise. She found an old wagon in the garage, loaded it with empty milk jugs, and filled them up at a park half a mile away. She went early, before other kids arrived. She knew if an adult asked too many questions, everything would fall apart. Carter started stealing. Not out of rebellion, but survival. He would ride his bike to a nearby gas station, wait for the clerk to be distracted, then grab small things, granola bars, juice boxes, bread. He taught Brianna how to look confident, how to not fidget. Layla was kept at home, always inside. Always safe. The kids made a pact: no police, no teachers, no neighbors. If someone found out, they'd be split up. That fear alone kept them invisible. They cleaned the house as best they could. Brianna would scrub the bathroom with vinegar and water, Carter swept the floor, and Layla picked up trash and placed it neatly into grocery bags. It was survival with a thin veil of normalcy. When a social worker came once to follow up on a school truancy report, Brianna didn't answer the door. She held her siblings still and quiet under the table until the knocking stopped. The woman never returned. Amanda never called. Her phone remained off. Brianna eventually found a burner phone hidden in Amanda's sock drawer, but the contacts were wiped. There were a few texts left in the outbox, all to someone named Jay. One message said, "They won't even notice I'm gone." The children started to change. Carter became withdrawn, quiet. Layla spoke less and less, retreating into herself. Brianna's childhood faded fast. She was now both sister and parent, making hard decisions in silence. She stopped counting the days because they only reminded her that no one was coming. Every sound outside became a threat: a knock, a shout, the sound of an approaching car. But every day they made it without discovery was a victory. The fear of being found was equal to the fear of being forgotten. So, they chose to survive in the shadows. And the world, busy and blind, kept turning around them. By the start of the second year, the children had disappeared completely from public view. No one knocked on the door anymore. No mail was delivered. No bills came, because they had already gone unpaid for so long that services were cut off permanently. The Keller house became a ghost on the block, silent, dark, and sealed shut. The neighbors assumed the family had moved or the house had been abandoned. The kids made sure it stayed that way. Brianna had created a system to survive. She woke up before dawn, searched for discount food coupons in old newspapers tossed near the recycling bins on other streets, and used Amanda's old library card to access Wi-Fi from a bench outside the public library. With it, she signed up for every free trial delivery service she could find: fake names, fake emails. She'd intercept food deliveries by waiting at the edge of the street, claiming her mom was inside sick. It worked until it didn't. Eventually, the free trials ran out. The names got flagged. She started skipping meals so her siblings could eat. Inside the house, they lived in the shadows. The windows stayed covered. They used flashlights only when absolutely necessary. Brianna taught Carter how to boil water on a camp stove. The smoke made the walls gray, but it gave them hot noodles when they had them. Layla stopped speaking entirely. She would scribble drawings instead, mostly houses, sometimes empty ones, sometimes ones with stick figures inside crying or sleeping. Her silence made the rooms feel even emptier. The seasons passed like ghosts. Winter was the hardest. The kids wore layers of old clothes indoors, curled under blankets with lit candles for heat. When one of them got sick, Brianna used an old medical book Amanda had left behind. She taught herself what to do for fevers, coughs, stomach aches. There were nights she thought Carter might die from the cold or the flu. She would stay awake all night just to check if he was still breathing. Some days, they pretended Amanda was still there. They talk about her like she was just in another room or at work. It helped Layla eat, helped Carter sleep. Brianna never said what she truly thought, that Amanda had chosen to forget them. That their mother had decided. She liked her new life more than she loved her children. Once, a pizza flyer slid under the door. On the back was a checklist titled, "Is your child being neglected?" Brianna read each item. No food, no heat, no running water, no adults, no school, no healthcare. She circled all of them. Then she folded the paper and burned it in the sink. They didn't celebrate birthdays anymore. Holidays came and went in silence. When fireworks exploded on the 4th of July, Carter and Layla watched from the attic vent. Brianna stayed below, the middle of organizing summer when everything began to unravel. Life, the heat was unbearable, had become a constant calculation, like a heavy blanket. They could last, how long without electricity, there was no relief, how long no fans, no cold water, just stifling, stagnant air. The spoiled food that still lingered in the refrigerator, the trash that was too dangerous to leave outside, and the mildew from constant dampness had begun to rot together. The house smelled like something was dying. Brianna tried to cover it with baking soda, vinegar, even dryer sheets she found in the garage, but nothing worked. She had grown used to the odor, but to someone from the outside, it was overwhelming. A delivery driver named Marvin was the first person in over a year to sense something was wrong. He was bringing a package to the home next door when the wind shifted and the smell hit him. It was foul, thick, like a mixture of wet garbage and decay. Marvin had worked around dumpsters and waste facilities before, but this was different. It came from a place that should have been clean. A home. He mentioned it casually to the neighbor. When handing off the parcel, and she hesitated, admitting she hadn't seen anyone come in or out of the Keller house in months. Later that day, she called non-emergency police. The report was short: strong odor from abandoned-looking house, kids used to live there, no idea if they still do. 2 officers were dispatched for a welfare check. When they knocked, no one answered. They circled the house, looked through dirty windows, and caught a glimpse of what looked like movement inside. That was enough to force the door open, the stench at first, strong enough that one officer gagged. Trash was everywhere. Plates crusted with mold, piles of clothes, open cans, rotting food in bowls. The power had clearly been off for years. What they didn't expect, what they were completely unprepared for, was the sight of 3 children standing in the dark kitchen. Their eyes were wide, their bodies thin, clothes stained. Brianna stepped forward, calmly, and asked if they had brought food. The officers radioed for emergency services. Paramedics arrived minutes later and began assessing the children. Carter's body temperature was low despite the heat, malnutrition, they said. Layla wouldn't speak or make eye contact. She clung to a stuffed animal missing its arms. Brianna refused to leave until she knew her siblings were being taken together. She asked over and over, "You're not going to separate us, right?" At the hospital, doctors discovered that while the children were severely undernourished and psychologically fragile, they were alive. Barely. But alive. News spread quickly. Reporters camped outside the house within hours. Headlines exploded with shock and outrage. The public demanded answers. Who had left them? Why didn't anyone notice? Where was Amanda Keller? No one had answers yet, but a team of investigators were already digging into Amanda's old records. The trail she left behind was shallow, but it didn't take long to find the first clue: a series of money transfers traced to Las Vegas. Amanda Keller was found 5 days after the children were discovered. She was living in a high-rise condo in Las Vegas under the name Mandy Cull, paid for by a man named Jacob Linney. When police knocked on the door, she didn't run. She acted confused, almost bored, as if the idea that anyone was still looking for her seemed ridiculous. She was taken into custody without resistance, wearing designer sunglasses and a silk robe. The condo was filled with luxury items, expensive handbags, unopened makeup kits, wine bottles, and receipts from restaurants where meals cost more than her children had eaten in weeks. She was booked into Clark County Jail and extradited back to Ohio. Her mugshot showed no trace of panic. At her arraignment, she pleaded not guilty to charges of felony child endangerment, criminal neglect, and abandonment. Her lawyer argued that Amanda suffered from untreated mental health issues and that she believed her children were being cared for by someone else. But investigators had already uncovered the truth: she had made no arrangements. There were no caregivers, no babysitters, no money sent. For nearly 3 years, Amanda Keller had completely erased her children from her life. The trial began 3 months later and was broadcast live. Every network carried it. The courtroom was packed, local parents, activists, and journalists trying to understand how a mother could walk away so completely. Prosecutors presented texts Amanda had sent to Jacob, one of which read, "They were always holding me back. I finally feel free." They showed photos of her vacations, her expensive dinners, her new life while her children lived in filth. One photo showed Amanda smiling at a rooftop party on the same night Brianna had called 911 after Carter fainted from hunger and heat exhaustion. Brianna testified in court. Now 15, she stood calmly in front of the room and answered every question with clear, unwavering detail. She explained how she had rationed food, treated fevers, and kept her siblings alive when no one else would. When asked what she thought of her mother, she said, "I stopped thinking about her a long time ago." The courtroom was silent. Amanda never showed emotion. Not when Carter took the stand, not when the doctor listed the extent of Layla's psychological regression. She sat stiff, avoiding eye contact, fidgeting only when her lawyer whispered updates. The jury deliberated for less than 4 hours. Guilty on all counts. The judge sentenced her to 35 years in prison without parole, calling her actions the coldest, most deliberate abandonment of children I've ever seen. After the trial, the children were placed in the custody of a maternal cousin who had come forward after seeing the news. Brianna enrolled in a support program for trauma survivors. Carter began therapy. Layla slowly started to speak again. Their journey wasn't over, but it had changed direction. Amanda never contacted them again. No letters. No apologies. She disappeared a second time, this time behind bars. This time, the children were the ones who chose not to look back.